So let's get to the questions about Deion Sanders and about Colorado. We'll start with one that Nathan sent in.
Dear Andy, I feel like with the sudden shift of perception of Coach Prime, it's from, savant to villain. I feel like this is a good time to ask the question of what should be acceptable interpersonal behavior for a college football coach. I remember last year, around this time when Deion was hired and he got rid of all the players, and some of us were saying, oh, that's kind of a dick move. But I know that other people, a lot of the talking heads, were saying, well, it doesn't really matter. This happens. All that really matters is winning games. And then Deion went on and said that ridiculous thing about wanting a quarterback with 2 parents and linemen who only have 1. And some of us were like, wow, that's a really insensitive and terrible thing to say and probably stupid. And yet there were a lot of talking heads who were like, oh, no, that's totally just something that coaches think already. And all that really matters is winning games. Well, Deion hasn't shown that he can win games yet. But also, can we have a serious conversation about what a coach should be allowed to say, what a coach should be allowed to do, and how he should be allowed to treat students? Because, yeah, we can talk about them getting paid, but at the end of the day, they are students. And even if you are the boss of a Fortune 500 company, if you treat your employees like junk, no one's going to like you. And, there's a good chance your employees aren't going to work as well for you as they would otherwise. I feel like this is a really important discussion that a lot of people are just not having. So how should a coach actually act in 2024? What is off the table and what is acceptable?
All right, that is a good question from Nathan at the end. What's acceptable? How are you? Because this is where this particular version of the Deion discourse has bubbled up. Max Olson in The Athletic writes a story where he tracked down where everybody went after the roster purge last year. And he talked to some of the players who got cut. Some of those players did not have very nice things to say about how they were treated at Colorado, which is not surprising because they were essentially told they're not good enough. People don't like that. Now, I have a little different opinion on Deion cutting players than I think a lot of people do. My opinion on Deion cutting players is fine. Cut whoever you want. Make the roster what you want it to be. You're hired to win games. You took over a 1-11 team. You need to cut players. You need to make the roster better. And I think we can all safely agree he did. Shedeur, Travis Hunter, Shiloh, those are better players than what Colorado had. Now, how he went about it, you can disagree with. Them clapping back this week at the guys who were mad, they don't have to do that. But again, they can do it. And that's why I asked, is he making a heel turn? Because this is wrestling heel behavior, which don't get that confused. That's not like real villain behavior. It's cartoon villain behavior. It's this is for show. This is for the entertainment value of it. And the thing is, Deion Sanders is very entertaining. That is why we're here. That is why we keep talking about him. Bradley in the chat, I only clicked on this video because it said Colorado, so technically Colorado gets On3 views, so they should be happy. I am happy. Again, I don't think you guys understand how this works. He's interesting. You're interested in him. We talk about him. And that's the whole point here. A lot of the complaints about Max's story have been, well, other schools do this too. Look at all the guys in the portal. And you're right. Other schools have had roster purges. In fact, while not as extreme as the one in year one for Deion at Colorado, there were some that were pretty close. Like Arizona State was very close. Well, guess what? You want to know why we talked a lot more about Colorado's roster purge than Arizona State's? Because you hired Deion Sanders. He's interesting. I love Kenny Dillingham, the new Arizona State coach. Nice guy. Really fun. Can do the worm. It's great. He's not Deion Sanders. We're not going to talk about him as much as we talk about Deion Sanders. He wasn't the greatest cornerback of all time. He wasn't one of the greatest personalities who's ever been in sports. See it right here. Got my Rowback Performance hoodie on. The most comfortable hoodies, polos, shorts, you name it. I love my Rowback hoodies. Like I say, they get stolen by family members. That's why I've got so many of them. But they are the perfect multi-purpose, absolutely most comfortable thing in your wardrobe. Perfect for every situation. Go to rowback.com. That is RHOBACK.com. Use the code Andy for 20% off your first order. Load up on those hoodies. The polos are awesome. The shorts are great. The joggers are cool. You name it. Rowback.com. Code Andy, 20% off your first order. When Colorado hired Deion Sanders, it said, look at us. It hired Deion Sanders for the attention that he would bring. Well, guess what? You got what you wanted, but you don't get to dictate how that attention gets focused or how everybody feels. And you see that a lot with places that aren't used to getting attention, that then get it, and they wanted it, but they don't understand how attention works. Like you really don't get to dictate the terms of it. What they want is, oh, he's got Lil Wayne leading him out of the tunnel. Ooh, Warren Sapp's help for the D line. Oh, it's so amazing. What you're getting is that, which was fun, by the way. That whole Colorado State game day was amazing. But you're also getting a somewhat critical look at roster management, roster construction. You're getting people who go, okay, and then I think I fall into this boat. Year one, I get the whole roster purge. I get cutting everybody. All of this makes perfect sense. But when you do the same thing again in year two, then I start to wonder. Then I start to wonder if there's a long-term plan. When you're not doing in-home visits, when you're not doing in-school visits, you're not doing the things that other coaches are doing to secure talent. I start to wonder if there's a long-term plan. When what you're getting out of the portal, because we have eyes and we talk to coaches and we know who everybody wants in the portal and who everybody's kind of indifferent to. And most of the guys you're getting out of the portal are not the ones that everybody else wants. And we're not super optimistic about what you're going to be in year two relative to what you were in year one. Yeah, you're going to get criticized. You're going to get people saying, I don't think this is going to work long term. I'm not sure you know what you're doing. And maybe Deion will prove us wrong on that front. Maybe they will have an incredible season this year. They'll win a bunch of games. And we'll be wrong. And I'll be the first to come on and say, I messed up. I was wrong. Deion had a better plan than I thought he had. I don't think I'm going to have to say that, though. Because I saw what you brought in from the portal. Dave in the chat says, look at me, but don't look at the warts. See, but here's the thing about the Deion Sanders part. I don't think Deion is controlling how we look at him. I don't think he's seeking out the attention as much as people think he is. We just gravitate to him. There are certain people that we do that to. And sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. With Deion, it makes perfect sense because he has this magnetic personality. He was the greatest cornerback of all time. Like, if you watch Deion play at Florida State and then for the Cowboys and the Falcons and the 49ers, like, he was electrifying on the field. And then he had the personality on TV afterwards. He is a magnetic person that people want to watch and people want to talk about. Like, Tim Tebow was like that, but didn't have anywhere near the accomplishments in the NFL. He was a good college player, but he was a polarizing figure where you could just build an entire debate show around him. And they did over and over and over again. Deion, I would argue, is actually a better person for that because he's more interesting. He's more accomplished. But that's why you hired him. You hired him so we'd talk about him. So we talk about Colorado. And I think, like, the people at Ohio State, the people at Alabama, they get talked about all the time. They get this. They're used to this. Because while their fans say very nice things about them all the time, and while we say objectively nice things about them when they're doing well, we're also very hard on them when they don't. Like, unreasonably hard. I think about every time Nick Saban would get up at SEC Media Days in a year after one where they didn't win the national championship. The whole next week was us saying, look at Nick Saban making all these excuses. When the guy had probably gone 11-1 the previous season. Like, that's what we do. That's the job. We talk about sports. You like talking about sports. That's why we're here. But it's truly amazing every time when somebody hires somebody to get attention and then they get mad that they got attention. But that's where we're at right now. All right, we got a couple other Deion questions. Well, one's a Shedeur question. This one's from Steven. Will the Shedeur Sanders tweet hurt him in the long run? And let's put up the tweet. This is Shedeur Sanders tweeting in response to that same athletic story. And the quotes from one particular player, Xavier Smith, who wound up transferring to Austin Peay. He since followed Scotty Walden to UTEP. And Shedeur says, I don't even remember him. Bro had to be very mid at best. Again, you don't have to say this. You chose to say this. Is it going to hurt him for awards? No, I don't think so. If Shedeur Sanders has a great season, he's going to win awards. Is it going to hurt him in the draft? Probably not. Look, they'll tell you any reason that you can find some unnamed scout that's going to rip somebody. I'm sure there will be plenty of unnamed scouts who will rip Shedeur Sanders just like they've ripped all these other quarterbacks. But I don't think it's really going to hurt him. Like, I noticed this week everybody's complaining because some NFL folks said that the Spencer Rattler performance on QB1 when he was in high school, that hurt his draft. No, Spencer Rattler's college performance hurt Spencer Rattler's draft stock. If they thought Spencer Rattler was great, they would have drafted him in the first round. Trust me, they were drafting QBs in the first round. Michael Penix Jr. went in the top 10. Bo Nix went number 12. Those are guys that you would not expect to get drafted in the first round. So if they thought Spencer Rattler was that great, they would have picked him in the first round. I don't think his performance on the show changed that. And that was a long time ago. And I guarantee you there were plenty of people at South Carolina who said, hey, you get to know this guy. He's not that guy. I don't think that's what affected it. I don't think a tweet is going to affect Shedeur Sanders' draft stock. How Shedeur Sanders plays on the field will affect Shedeur Sanders' draft stock. Now, the question is he going to play as well as he can? Is he going to be upright? Shedeur Sanders got sacked a ton last year. They're now moving to an offense that's going to require their offensive line to give him even more time. I just don't know if that's going to happen. That is the bigger issue. All of this stuff does come back to what happens on the field. One more question on this topic before we move on. This is from Ryan. Dear Andy, how long does Deion last at Colorado? Seems like his last roster building, taking only a few high school players, really purging his roster, taking more transfers in consecutive years, and culture, just from what's going on at X.com, are not working, and this thing is going off the rails quickly. Before we thought Deion might hop out of Colorado quickly because he'd have another bigger opportunity. Now, I'd be shocked if he's a Power 4 coach anywhere in 2026. What do you think? I'd be a little shocked too. Because, again, it goes back to the roster construction piece of it. He does not seem to be building for the long term. Now, he has started to fill the class of 2025. When we talked about this last time, he had not gotten any commitments in the class of 2025 yet. Now he's got 3. So that's good. He's starting to get with that. But they don't seem to be doing anything that builds any sort of foundation for the future. It seems to be built around the players he brought from Jackson State, the really good ones, Shedeur and Travis Hunter specifically. And then we'll see what happens. But going so deep into when he went deep into the transfer portal last year, he was taking guys that had a lot of eligibility remaining. I thought, okay, he's going to take those guys, and that's really what Lane Kiffin did at Ole Miss. Use that to jumpstart things, but they've got eligibility, so you can develop and build with them. But they've had so much outflow followed by inflow this year that you're not actually developing those guys. You looked at who you had, and you're like, these guys aren't good enough either. We'll get these other guys. But the relative quality of what they're getting is basically the same. So at a certain point, you got to stop and try to make the players better. Or you're not going to have a long-term future. You're just going to have the same season over and over and over again. And that's the thing. Now, as far as is it going off the rails, I don't know if it's going off the rails. We don't know that. It's the off season. We will know when the season starts. They played North Dakota State, Nebraska, Colorado State, and then they're into the Big 12 schedule. We'll know when they're playing games what this means. Now, we got a little bit of fool's gold last year because TCU was coming off a national title game appearance. Colorado goes in there and beats them, and we think, oh boy, Colorado's a lot better than we thought. Well, TCU turns out wasn't very good last year. Nebraska was a 5-17. They lost to Colorado. Horrible turnover game. Played terribly. Colorado barely beat Colorado State, which wasn't a very good team. That was the Lil Wayne day. That was the day that they got 10 million people to watch a Colorado State game that started at 10:30 on the East Coast. That was the day that showed us the power of Prime as a salesman. But it did not show us the power of Prime as a power conference football coach because they barely beat Colorado State. And then you saw the rest of the year how it went. They have to be better than that. If they're not, then this goes downhill very quickly. And I'm not sure Deion's going to want to deal with that. So it's really going to be up to him because I think as long as he's at Colorado, they're going to be getting more attention than they did. They're probably going to be able to recruit better than they could with somebody else. Probably. But again, if you're not willing to do the things that other coaches are doing, like I look at let's look at first-year coaches this year, like Fran Brown. We've had him on the show, the new coach at Syracuse. That guy inherited a better team than Deion inherited Colorado last year. So the expectations are higher for Fran Brown in year one, but he has definitely improved the roster. But he's also very hard at work trying to build for 25, 26. Like, he's very much doing it the way that he learned to do it from Kirby Smart, from Greg Schiano, from the guys that he's worked with before. And, you know, you guys can tell me that, well, Coach Prime's different, and he is different. He can get indoors that nobody else can get into, but he's not using that to his advantage. He's not playing 4D chess. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.